That still doesn't tell me how she got access to our comms, Koda said. Doesn't matter how big or important, a private business's lawyer should not be able to record us.
I'm only telling you what Second Lieutenant Franklin told me,
Sergeant Allen said, his deep voice rising in exasperation.
I'm not sure what you've gotten yourself into, but the second lieutenant said this came damn well near the top.
Koda held in a sigh, glaring at the park before him. He leaned against a sturdy alder tree, one of the many that encircled the park. Workout equipment was scattered along the jogging trail, on which Mav vented his frustrations. The park was a few blocks from the hospital, letting Koda keep an eye on it even without his gift. A bench enjoyed the shade the alder provided, as did the civilian, scrolling through a tablet, sitting on it. Need I ask the obvious question, sir? Koda said.
Need I remind you that they can get access to your personal comms?
Sergeant Allen said.
And that you've been given a cease and desist?
No, sir.
Then you know what you need to do. Try to calm the goof down. What's he doing?
Currently, pull-ups. The sergeant let out a single laugh.
Tell him squats or calf raises would do him better. Help him thicken out those scrawny little legs of his.
A faint smirk twitched Koda's lips. He'll love to hear it, sir. They said their goodbyes and hung up. The civilian was lounging on the bench, cheek resting on her fist as she continued scrolling through her tablet.
Did the obvious question have anything to do with why peacekeeper generals don't want literal abductors to face judgment?
The civilian asked, darkening her tablet screen. He was right to stop me, Koda said, pulling out the screen on his forearm again. The documents that Celine transferred to him were long and detailed, signed by at least 3 majors Koda had never considered important. Now he'd have to put them on the list. Whatever we say, we have to assume they'll know it. The civilian leaned to the other side, draping her arm over the bench's back.
And I'm guessing any code or script you know comes from the peacekeepers.
Koda shook his head. Mav and I have our own. We created it when we were young with a friend. Why had he shared that last part? She didn't need to know anything about Thomas. Was he slipping? He'd better get his act together, especially starting next week. The civilian, however, stared at Mav, who was now doing sit-ups with his legs hanging from the bar.
You guys know each other that long?
Most of our lives, Koda said.
Has he always been like this?
Koda smiled, a tingle of warmth reaching him despite being in the shade. Yeah.
I'm not sure if I could handle it. He seems so immature.
Says the one who planted herself on a bench and stared dramatically into the distance after making a declaration. The civilian flushed, her face growing red.
But that was cool.
Koda glanced at her from the side of his eye. She was pouting, looking pointedly away from Koda. Not exactly Koda's style, but Mav would have found it cute. Then something clicked. It was like the full moon had escaped the clouds on a dark night, revealing a new path. Koda formulated a plan. He'd been ready to let this kidnapping matter lie, but now... He won't admit it, but he's struggled with training, Koda said.
Seems like a strong fighter to me,
the civilian said. That was not the issue. You seem aware of the world. Aware enough, at least, not to see peacekeepers as the heroes we're lauded to be. She glanced around, as if making sure no cameras could catch them and somehow pick up what she said next.
And since you're talking about this to me, a civilian, you don't mind sharing some of the more unfortunate mission details you've undergone?
There are several, but the incident in Messer was the worst.
Of course you were sent there. That province has more rebellion than the other 5 combined.
Last year, we took out a whole town that we were informed was filled with insurgents. Koda watched Mav flip from the bar, then go directly into a martial arts form. Intel was wrong. We slaughtered a town full of innocents.
How horrible,
she whispered, her eyes wide and voice hollow. But Mav barely participated. He claims that he could tell something was off. That was why he hung back, basically did nothing, and who knows? Maybe he's more observant than we give him credit for. But I don't think so. I think he saw all those people, barely able to fight back and defend themselves, and knew it was wrong. Not me, though. I follow orders, and I can live with it. Mav is different. He woke up for months afterwards, screaming from his nightmares. Made it hard to get a good night's rest, honestly. The civilian took a long breath.
At least he got better, right?
From that, maybe. But he has new nightmares now. Silence followed as Mav performed a complicated maneuver. He stopped as a small child ran to him, the kid's father hurrying after the boy. He's a good guy, Koda said as Mav knelt to be face level with the boy. Too good for what peacekeepers are ordered to do.
Why's he do it then? It's not just to spend time with you, is it?
Maren said. No. He likes to hang around, and Mav's always around. But he mainly wants to help people. Koda faced the civilian, and he wants to do it while traveling the world. The civilian's eyes widened, then narrowed in thought. She said nothing, but Koda didn't care. Let her stew on it. Maybe, by the end of this ordeal, he'd be able to help both Mav and the civilian. But first, he'd have to break the law and get away with it.